Hi everybody. Just wanted to go ahead and get this lesson out for today. So this lesson is based on your ebook 21.2. So that's going to be the second exit ticket and the second homework for this chapter. Just to keep things fairly straightforward, it's really exactly what we did in the previous lesson, which is still solving by factoring. But you'll notice that there's a small change, and specifically the thing that changes is the thing in the front. So the ax squared plus bx plus c, before there wasn't really an a. It was just an invisible 1. And so factoring was relatively simple, relatively easy. And so this lesson, I'm going to keep it super short. I'm just going to show you 3 examples. It's what I really want to get in your head is that it's all about practice, right? So the more of these you practice, the better that you're going to get at it. I'll also post a worksheet with answers in Google Classroom, so you'll have some extra practice. But for today, I'm just going to show you 3 very short problems on how to do these. And as we go through them, I'll point out that I haven't actually solved these yet, so I'll be solving them with you, so you'll be able to see exactly what goes through my head when I solve. So let me just find the 3 problems. No, wrong file. Nope, that's not it. Nope. Where did I put the problems? No, not that one. That's weird. Oh, wait, it's right here. There we go. Sorry about that. So here we go. And 3 quick problems like I was saying. All right, so here's the first problem. Don't mind anything that you saw previously, unrelated. So here's a problem, and when we see this, our goal is to get this into factored form, right? And so the very first thing that I'm going to notice, or let me back up. What we used to do was say, okay, well, how do we get to these 2 numbers, right? Like what multiplies to -5 but adds up to -2? But that changes now because of the a, right? So because we have a number in front, we can't actually do that. So I'm actually going to start with the a. That's going to be my strategy. So I'm going to ask myself, okay, how am I going to get 3p squared when I FOIL this back out? And the only way that I can get 3p squared is going to be simply 3p. That should say p. 3p times p. That's the only way it's going to happen, right? Because if I think about this, first times first, 3p times p is 3p squared. Then what I'm going to focus on is the last term, the -5. So I'm going to ask myself, what are the factors of -5? And let me just write them over here. So that could be, 5 times -1, or it could be -5 times +1. Now, because I have a coefficient in the front, order matters. Order is going to matter. So I'm actually going to have to add 2 more. I'm going to have -1 times 5. Even though it's the same as the first one, 5 times -1, because order matters, I have to add that. And so similarly, I also have to add 1 times -5. So how do I get -5? These are all of my options, and keeping in mind that I have to kind of double up because order matters. So literally what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through all of these. Now what you're going to notice is if you're good at this, if you've been doing your homework, if you've been practicing, you're going to see that this is kind of going to come naturally to you, and you might already see what the answer is going to be. But the honest, true thing is that if you're not used to doing this, if you haven't done this a million times, it's really all about practice until you're intuitively seeing what the answer is going to be, because essentially that intuition that I'm referring to is really just doing FOIL in your head. But until you're there, until you're at that level, for now, just write them out, see what you get. So I'll start with the first one. That's a +5 and a -1. So I'm going to write +5 minus 1, and I'm going to FOIL it out and see what I get. So if this is right, we'll get what we started with, the quadratic there. So let's see. First times first, 3p times p. I already know I'm going to get 3p squared. I started that off correctly. Outside times outside, 3p times -1 is -3p. And then 5 times p, that's +5p. And let me just pause there before I keep going, because what's the point of doing the last times last, which would be -5? What's the point of doing it if right here I see that -3 and +5p, that's going to be -3 and +5, that's +2. That's wrong because I can see that I need to get -2. So I'm just going to cross out this one right there. I know that's wrong. So I'll try the next one. And again, intuitively you might think, oh, well, why don't I switch it around? And maybe that's the right answer. And maybe you should do that, right? So let's try the next one. So what I'm suggesting is, well, what if it's the other way around? What if it's -5 and +1, the bottom one? We don't know. Let's find out. So that would be, I'll write it over here. That would be 3p, that's +1, so 3p plus 1. And then my p, and then my factor is -5, so I'll write p minus 5. FOIL it out. That's 3p squared, outside times outside, 3 times -5, so it's -15p. I'm just going to stop right there. There's no way that I'm going to get from -15p to -2p. But, just in case you want to see it, I'll keep going. Inside times inside, that's plus 1p, or just plus p. And then last times last. Clearly, -15 and +1, again, do not give me -2. That's wrong. So you see, intuitively, while that might have seemed right because you're like, oh man, I was so close when I tried this, it was -3 and +5, what if I just switch the numbers around? So you see, it doesn't always work, and what really throws you off is that a, the 3 in the front. So let me go to option number 2. So I'll write it down here. That's going to be 3p, let's see, my factor is -5, and I'm going to have p, that's a +1. Let's try this. So first times first, of course, 3p squared, outside times outside, that's going to be plus 3p, inside times inside, oh boy, here we go, +3, -5, that's going to give me -2, and then last times last, -5, that's it. We found it. Those are my answers, so I already know that this one is right, and this one, I mean, there's no point in trying it, I know it's going to be wrong. And as far as finding the actual p, remember, use a zero product property, so simply write 3p minus 5 equals 0, and also write, and also you're going to write p, why doesn't this work? Let me try this. P plus 1 equals 0. So those are my two factors, and I'm going to set each of them equal to 0. So in the first one, I'm going to add 5 to both sides, and I'll get 3p equals +5 because I'm adding it to both sides. And I'm going to divide both sides by 3. I'm going to get p equals 5 over 3. And that's it. For my other one, just subtract 1 from both sides, and I'll get p equals -1. So there are my two solutions to this problem. All right, so I'm just going to do one or two more. All right, here's my next one. So I see 2n squared plus 3n minus 9. I'll actually start writing over here. So I know the only way I'm going to get 2n squared, and again, I'm lucky because there's only one way to get it, is to do 2n times n. So I know that in my two factors, I'm going to have a 2n and I'm going to have an n. Okay, then I have to ask myself, so again, that was like step number 1, if you want to call that. Step number 2 is, well, how do I get -9? And I'll write out the factors on the right side this time. So that could be, let's see, 9 times -1. It could be -1 times 9. Remember, order matters. And the only other way I can think of off the top of my head is going to be 3 times -3. And of course, order matters. So -3 times 3 would also work. And off the top of my head, I can't think of any other way to get to a -9. Those of you that are currently thinking, oh, 4.5 times 2, that's true, but we're not going to consider fractions or decimals as factorable for now. Later in the year, we'll practice with that stuff, but for now, we're not worried about fractions or decimals, so we're only going to do integers. So that's it. I'm just going to plug these in. So +9 and -1. Let's try that. So +9, -1. First times first, 2n squared, outside times outside, minus 2n, inside times inside, and last times last. -2 and +9, that's going to be +7. In the middle, not the +3 I was looking for, so that's incorrect. I'll move on. So I'll try 2n minus 1 and n plus 9. So let me just write this here, so I know it's not that first. First times first, 2n squared, outside times outside, plus 18n. That's a plus 18n. I already can tell that doesn't look very promising, right? Minus 1n minus 9. Nope, that can't be it. Cross that one. Oop, there we go. Cross this one out right there. Try the next one. 2n plus 3 and minus 3. And remember, I'm just plugging these numbers in for my factors, right? So that'll give me 2n squared minus, where would we go? Minus 6n plus 3n. Well, that's not that bad. -6 +3 will give me -3n. Almost, but not quite. But hey, that pretty much tells me what the answer is going to be, right? So I'll just box it off over here. So it's going to be 2n minus 3 and plus 3. Double check, even though I know it's my last possible option. So that's 2n squared plus 6n minus, oops, I put an x, I'm so used to putting x, minus 3n minus 9, combine like terms, and yeah, that's going to give me the positive 3n. And then to find the actual solutions, remember set each of them equal to 0, so that's 2n minus 3 equals 0, and I'm going to have n plus 3 set it equal to 0. It's a zero product property. For the first one, add 3 to both sides, so you'll get 2n equals positive 3, divide both sides by 2, n equals 3 halves, and my other one, just subtract 3 from both sides, and I get n equals negative 3 once I move it to the other side. Nice and easy. So this one I had to do a little bit more work because it was the last option that I came up with. All right, very last one I'm going to work out with you. So right off the top, first times first, how do I get 3n squared? The only way that's going to happen is a 3n times an n. That's the only way it's going to happen. How do I get positive 4? Well, let's think about this. That could be 4 times 1. It could be 1 times 4. It could be 2 times 2. And of course, if I switch 2 times 2, it's still going to say 2 times 2. So order doesn't really matter if they're both the same number. You might be thinking, oh, well, that's it. But there's a little bit more to this. So remember that negative times a negative gives you a positive. So negative 4 times negative 1, order matters. So negative 1 times negative 4. And the 2's would also apply, so negative 2 times negative 2. These are all my options. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Mr. Hussein, that's a lot, that's too much, I don't want to do all this. And again, it's not so much a hint as it is me pointing out that, listen, the more you practice this, the more you're going to start seeing what the answer is, because you're going to be able to kind of foil it out in your head. Now, I'm not saying do these problems in your head, because that's dangerous. But in general, you're going to start seeing the patterns, and you're going to kind of have an idea of, okay, which ones should I try first? And let me just give you an example real quick. Let's think about this. If I see that the middle term is negative, that means when I add up the O and the I in FOIL, so I do outside times outside, inside times inside, I need a negative number. Well, any of these three that I start with, am I going to get to a negative number if I'm just multiplying and adding positives? And the answer is no. So even though all of those multiply to positive 4, the chances are very slim, aka none, that I'm going to be able to get the answer from those. So really, I'm just going to be trying the last three. See, so right off the top, I know, just off the top of my head, because I know how to FOIL, that I should really just try these options. So let me go ahead and try them out. So I'm going to try negative 4 and negative 1 as my factors. If I FOIL that out, I get 3n squared minus 3n minus 4n. I'm just going to stop because that would be minus 7n, and I know that that will not be right. Let me try the next one. That's 3n minus 1, and then n minus 4. So FOIL, 3n squared, 3 times negative 4, so that's negative 12n, minus n, that would be minus 13n. That cannot be it. Now let's try the next one. Cross that one out. So that's 3n minus 2 and n minus 2, a double negative 2. So that's going to be 3n squared minus 6n, I almost put an x again, because 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, minus 2n, we found it, and then plus 4. So that's it, we found it. That one works. So all I got to do is set each of these equal to 0. I'll box this off, so I'm going to have 3n minus 2 equals 0, and n minus 2 equals 0. So on this one, add 2, 3n equals positive 2, divide, n equals 2/3. And then here, of course, just add 2, n equals positive 2. There you go. All right, so when you do the exit ticket for this, you'll notice that the last problem is a word problem. And I think it's something like how long is the dolphin out of the air or something like that. So just remember that, okay, it's a quadratic, so when you graph it, and let me actually, let me see here. Maybe we'll do it right here off to the side. So it's a quadratic, so you got a dolphin, it jumps up and it splashes back down. It's asking you how long is it out of the air. So if you imagine this as a graph, right, it's asking you not how high it goes, it's asking you like the time. How long is it in the air? So how far is it from here to here? So like this way, how far is it from there to there? So if you know what the answers are, so if you know, like, let's say this is obviously probably going to be x equals 0, and let's just say this is x equals, I'm making this up here, let's say this is x equals 5, then you could say, oh, the dolphin's out of the air for 5 seconds. So on that problem, take the problem they give you, the quadratic, factor it find the solutions just like we did on all three of these examples, and then figure out how far apart they are. So if like this is 0 and this is 5, 5 minus 0 would be, oh, the dolphin's out of the air for 5 minutes. Okay, that makes no sense, right? So it's probably be seconds, 5 seconds. So yeah, just factor it and do that. So that's all I've got for you. Good luck. Let me know if you need anything. Google Classroom, Teams, email, whatever you want, really. So yeah, bye.